This is our part 2 of our webinar series for the spring. We got a great one today on visual resumes, and that should be fun. Hello, Rebecca Clark. It's good to see you. Next week, just a note, if you've been signing up for these usually happen on Tuesdays. And that's the way it is for the rest of the month, except next week. Next week is on April 14th, and that's a return of the folks from Rhode Island, but we're going to do parents' point of view on self-employment for their adult.
Oh, I know that you were saying something about it.
Can someone mute, please? I think that's Marilyn. Thank you, Marilyn. We want to hear from you, but only when it's planned, right? Okay. So next week's is on the 14th. After that, we return to the last 2 of the month on a Tuesday. April 20th, Dr. Steve Hall and Patty Cassidy from Griffin Hamas is going to talk to us about all things fidelity related. You don't want to miss that one. It's a 90-minute one. We're really excited about that. If you don't know much about fidelity, come and join. It's easy to say. We know what infidelity is. Fidelity means staying true to the process. So we'll have them on, and then we'll finish up with our very own Katrina Spooner from Arc of Macon, really talking about some systems change there. So sign up for those. Continue to join us. We are planning maybe 2 more by self-advocates that are kind of nationally known, and we'll be getting that out to you. As always, I'm joined by Joseph Harrison in Advancing Employment, little wave there, Dr. Tracy Rackensberger, Amy Price from Price Support Network, who is also now doing work for Advancing Employment. We're very happy about that. We have our very own Gillian Grable from IHDD. And so we're going to start with Gillian, then we'll move into hearing from Amy Price and Carl King. And if there's a little time left, then we will talk about the Tell the Valued Story initiative. So, all right, let's do it, Joseph. So we got South Florida on here. Okay. Oh, yes, Louisa, we know you. We know you. We're glad you're joining us again. Great, great. Where's that music, Joseph? Is it not working?
Oh, can you not hear it?
A little bit.
That's as loud as my phone goes.
Gillian, do you want to sing it? Do you want to sing the song?
No, I'll just get started.
Okay. Well, we gave it a shot.
Yeah.
I can't wait for you all to hear from Gillian and Amy and Carl, so we'll turn it over to you. Thanks, Gillian.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We're going to have a template come up in a moment on the screen, but I'd like to say good afternoon to everyone, and thanks for choosing to spend your time with us today. We were going to have Sam Cooke, A Change is Going to Come, playing for you, but the music doesn't seem to be coming in, but just think about that song as we share with you today. Our intention is to offer both those of you who have lots of experience with supporting people in visual resumes and employment, and those of you who are just beginning. And it represents what we have to share today, decades of experience of those of us presenting, but also colleagues of ours and allies over the years who we've learned from and with. I hope you had a chance to print the template, because we're going to be using it as I talk today. And I want to begin with a story, and I'd like you to keep also in mind someone who's a job seeker who you know, as we share today. This is a story from the 1980s from a woman in Middle Georgia named Harriet, who attended a day center, and she also lived in a group home, and she used gestures to communicate. And the support staff with her got curious about Harriet and her desire to constantly pick things up off the floor or outside off the ground. And she also was the one who became pretty upset when people would try to stop her from doing this. So they got curious about how could Harriet have some role in her community, and started to look at a map of the town and tried to imagine a place where picking things up was useful, and found a golf course on the map. And they called the golf course, and really ended up speaking with the woman who ran the golf shop and said, could they bring this lady named Harriet out to meet her? And she said, sure. It turned out the lady in the golf shop had been a teacher and loved the idea of people learning new roles and learning new things, and was able to help navigate introducing Harriet to picking up golf balls on the golf course, which was a very important role in that golf course. And they needed people to do that. And also the woman in the golf shop ended up teaching Harriet how to load drinks in the drink machine in the golf shop. So what started out as something that Harriet had done in a segregated setting away from the community turned into something that was of value in actually a very highly valued setting, a golf course in the community, and became for Harriet an apprenticeship. And so what I'd like us to think about is the rival image that Harriet Story represents, her doing something very valued in the community, and the person that you brought to the webinar in your mind, as I explain how we did the visual resume for a man named Bo, and you received a link to two visual resumes, one named Bo and one named Jenna. Bo was a man who we met in Statesboro, Georgia. And we started to think about how we might make a visual resume with him, but also how might he get introduced to a job. Most of us got introduced to a job by someone we know, a colleague, a friend, a family member, someone from high school, maybe a sports team, somebody we knew. So we started to think with Bo and a couple of the staff who knew him well about his gifts and skills and talents and interests. Joseph, is the template up on the screen? Because I don't see it. Okay, so we began with, who's going to help us brainstorm? In this case, it happened to be a woman who manages the group home where Bo lives, and then a staff person who supports him at the center where he attends during the day. So we jotted down a lot of the things that Bo was interested in, and places he volunteered in community, places he went in his community. We learned that Bo did some construction with his dad, that he volunteered at the food bank, and you can move to the next part of the resume, Joseph. He was a loyal sports enthusiast. He likes to get the job done, and that's an example of an endearing quality that Bo has among many. And then we brainstormed with the two staff people and Bo about people they knew in the community, coworkers, friends, businesses they went to find out, where might we make some photos of Bo doing things in the community for his visual resume. And so the next slide says, where and with whom do Bo's interests and gifts and skills and talents, where could they show up in the community? And so we said, well, so who knows a construction site? And, who knows a restaurant? Who knows somewhere where we can photograph Bo loading boxes, because that was one thing that he did at the food bank that he really enjoyed. And where in our community is, or his community, is there a sports team playing. So we found a construction site through a realtor that somebody knew. And I'm going to contrast finding the construction site to take a picture of Bo versus, say, a construction site behind the jail, because one of the notions we want to introduce is on a visual resume, you want to make sure the most valued setting in your community is where you take a photograph of someone. And then we called the associate director of, turned out to be a university team in this community, but it could be a high school, to take a photograph there versus, for example, you know, an exercise group in the day center. Again, a very valued setting in his community was the college sports team. And then we chose a company or business to show Bo unloading boxes versus going, for example, to the Salvation Army to unload boxes. And again, the idea was to show Bo in very valued settings, doing things that represent his skills and talents and interests. For those of you who are unsure about making calls to find out if you could come, or a convenient time to come to a setting to take a photograph, you know, our experience says you can introduce yourself as just a member of the community. You'd like to bring someone to take a photo to show a workplace that they might enjoy working in, or you can, if you've got a connection, introduce yourself, you know, through your connection. One thing we want to emphasize is that whenever you do take someone to take a photograph, just make sure that people, you know, have stylish clothes on and their shirts tucked in and hair groomed, all the kinds of things that you or I would do when we were making a first impression, really for anybody, whether it's a job or for another kind of activity.
Gillian, we've got a question I thought you might want to address.
Yeah.
As you're doing this, and this this graphic is beautiful. That's Gabby Melnick's work. If you'll wave at everybody, Gabby. The question is, Gillian, the person says, I take it that you're staging some of these photos. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, you want to talk about that a little? And
I'm sorry I didn't say that from the very beginning. Yeah, when I mentioned if you're calling, for example, we called the realtor and said to the realtor, who we didn't know, but we introduced ourselves through somebody that he knew, that we knew, do you have a construction site or know of a construction site in your community where we can take a photo of this gentleman named Bo doing some construction work? And he said, fine. And we drove, I think, half an hour outside of town to a construction site. But yes, all of these were staged photos that we have made so far. Some of the visual resumes we have, the photos have been taken inside the home of where the person lived, but you could actually take the photo anywhere that's a valued setting, and you know, that shows the gifts, skills, talents, or qualities that the person wants on their resume. Thank you for that, Doug. Again, if one contact doesn't work, you know, use another. Go back to your brainstorm team and say, well, gee, you know, we thought we had a sports team to take a photo of our job seeker because he's very loyal in his sort of team loyalty, but that didn't work out. So where else could we go? And it may be a next door town. There's a high school sports team that you can stage a photo of somebody being a loyal team enthusiast. So I'd like to just drop down to the last part of the slide, a template, which I think is really important, is to just reflect on, after you've staged your visual resume, or maybe even after you've just gone to make one or two photos and you sort of feeling uncomfortable, or maybe it feels like it's not working so well, to come back with your brainstorms team and just say, well, so what worked and what didn't work, and you know, what was missing and what should we try next time, so that you're in a constant learning conversation with your brainstorm team and with your job seeker and anyone else who knows them well, seeking and finding different opportunities in your community. I'd also like to say, if your job seeker is someone whose competencies are very hidden, someone perhaps who use gestures to communicate, someone who no one knows very well because perhaps she's been stuck sitting in the corner of a daycare or day center for ages. You may want to say to your job seeker, well, would you like to go out into your community, walking or rolling in your community, and see what we can find that's interesting? And sometimes that has a way for your job seeker of her or him showing interest or enthusiasm with some setting in the town, their own town, your town, the main street, where there may be some activities going on that give you some clues about what's interesting for the person and what may be some of their gifts. And again, what I'm calling what may be some of their hidden competencies that will be revealed by being literally outside, outdoors, walking, moving in your community. I've also had the experience where we've been walking around a community and someone met somebody who knew them when they were 5 years old and taught them in Sunday school and told me and the job seeker a little story about them in Sunday school. And, we never would have met that person if we hadn't been out and about in the community. So there's lots of things that can happen just when you're walking around. How am I doing on time, Doug?
You're doing just fine. About 10 more minutes. We have another question though, and I'm trying to answer it. And so is Amy. Anita
Okay.
Newby asked, how do you balance the valued setting with recognizable settings? Amy beat me to it. The visual resume is about showing the gifts and skills of people, not necessarily previous work history. So thank you, Amy. And Anita, I was just typing that if you're staging stuff and you don't want to imply someone's work there, as long as you're not including signage or things that are, easily seen, recognizable, you should be fine.
Okay. So we've got a few more minutes, Doug, for me.
Yeah, you got about
Okay.
9 more minutes, my friend.
Okay, well, let me end then with another small story and just go over the template once more. There was a woman that I met years ago named Mary, who, again, she was someone who it was very hard for people to think about what Mary might like. But the staff decided to get curious, and I wanted to emphasize curiosity as one of the most important qualities to me in life and in making visual resumes, and always presuming competence, that someone has many competencies, even though they may be hidden. So those would be 2 things I would say that as intentionalities are just crucial here. So Mary was someone that one of the staff people noticed when someone else brought in a bouquet of flowers for a staff person's birthday, that Mary's eyes lit up. And so what the little brainstorming team did when Mary's eyes lit up and she smiled and she kind of moved a little bit in her chair, they decided to say where, and this was before visual resumes, they were thinking about an apprenticeship really, where in the community are there flowers? So they said, well, at the florist, at the grocery store, at the plant nursery, in large businesses and hotels, bouquets of flowers. So someone knew somebody who knew the florist on the Main Street florist shop, and called. It was a cold call and said, we'd like to bring somebody by who enjoys flowers. What's a quiet time of the day? And again, I just encourage people to sort of practice calling if you're not used to introducing yourself on the phone, or just to go by. Sometimes going by works well. Other times going by, if it's a really busy time, the owner or the manager of the place doesn't have time to talk to you. But in this case, they called ahead. And the shopkeeper was actually quite intrigued by Mary and the idea that this was a woman who loved flowers and who got very engaged when she was with flowers and around flowers, and said, well, maybe Mary could have the floral bouquet of the week, floral arrangement of the week that I advertise on her tray in front of her wheelchair. So the brainstorm team had all kinds of challenges to think about. Well, how would Mary get to the shop, and who would help her change when she needed to use the restroom? But the brainstorm team got curious, took it on, and the customers stopped by and started to come more often because they really enjoyed seeing Mary's delight with displaying the arrangement. And of course, this increased the revenue for the florist manager, and it literally turned into a job for Mary. And that was an example of a job that didn't exist, or even an apprenticeship that didn't exist, but that the staff and Mary were curious enough to find a spot where basically her gifts were just not only welcomed, but just became very desired. And so I just encourage people to use their imagination, to gather your brainstorm team. You know, if you don't have anybody else with your job seeker, you know, bring in a family member who's interested in helping you brainstorm, and you know, anyone else who either might know your job seeker or wants to get to know your job seeker, and just start thinking about their gifts, skills, and talents, and interests, and find the settings where their competencies show up to take pictures, and brainstorm the connections, reach out.
Hold on
and
1 second. I
Yes?
don't know if y'all can hear me.
Yes, we can. Hello? All of a sudden the sound went.
I think he's all set, Gillian. You're still on.
Okay. And make sure at the very end that you, with your brainstorm team, whoever you've been having the conversation with, that you take at least 15 minutes just to reflect, how did this work for us? What would we do next time? And enjoy, because I think for me, it is a glorious thing to be able to support another person to find a role in their community, a job, some way of making a contribution, because that's what people did for me. And for most of us, someone introduced us and helped us get on a path to making our contribution. So I think it's a glorious thing to be engaged in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gillian. We're going to come back to you as we move on. I just want to mention that Adrian has asked in chat for the 2 video resumes that we sent out, or that Joseph sent out prior. Joseph, can you pull up that first poll that we kind of missed on the beginning? We can still use that for some information if we can launch that first poll. How many of you watched the 2 video resumes that were provided in that email? All right, here we go. Let's strive for 100% here on answering. Come on, it's fun. All right, we're up at 50%. Keep it coming. How many of you watched the 2 video resumes that were provided? Your answers are both, only one neither. So it looks like, come on, just need about 10 more votes. It's like calling bingo over here. All right, Joseph, let's end the pain and we'll show the polling. Okay. So it looks about like half of us got to see both. Just 6 folks only saw one, and probably you signed up later. If you didn't get to see those, they are in the chat. So you can go there if you like. Carl, and who we'll hear from later, and Amy have been working on some other visual resumes. So thank you for the results. Thank you. Gillian, I just wanted to say this to you and Gabby, because our friend Kitterson Klein made this observation. If I can find it, yes, there we go. He really loves this process map that you two have created, the graphic. He thought it would be really great to use with high school students in transition. But he says something that I think is, really cool about this this roadmap that you two have created is it's a combination of reflection and thinking. In other words, it's a document that gets you to an outcome, right? So no sense in doing it if it doesn't get us there. And I think for me, having it like that, Gabby and Gillian, is really great. Thank you. Okay, Amy and Sheila, I am looking at your posts in here. I see that you want a job. That's great. And you have a question. What's the question, Sheila?
How can I receive, like you asked about the resume videos? I got the email to sign up, but how can I get where I can get the videos and stuff y'all send out?
If you will contact Joseph Harrison, Joseph will put you on the mailing list.
Okay.
And Sheila, if you don't have that after we're done today, I'll make sure you get connected, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Amy's going to talk to us, maybe Ben too, I hope, a little bit about how you use these types of instruments in job development and engaging employers. I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
So much, and thanks Gillian so much for that. I'm not quite as cool as Gillian. I don't have the intro music, but you can just imagine some really cool music that's playing right now as I'm join all of you. So again, I'm Amy Price. I have been doing this work for about 10 years, supporting people to find jobs. And, for those of you who are also engaged in that type of work, or you love someone who you support to do this, that it's not always easy. This work is not, our work is around how do we really see people's gifts, skills, and talents, and also where they can excel and what they're good at, and how do we really take that and share that with the world. And so this is why we have this tool of visual resumes, so that, there was the question earlier about, how is this really used? But really the way that I've always used this tool is to really say, you can look at a person and you can get an idea about what they can do or what their skills may be. But then if you see what those are and really are watching that, you may get a whole other view about the possibilities for people. And so this is all about really being able to see the possibilities for people and utilizing this tool. Like Gillian shared earlier, I think it was such a great thought that she shared at the beginning of, as Gillian's talking, as I'm talking, and as Carl shares, and also Doug, really keep in mind, like, who is somebody that that could really benefit from having a visual resume, and really being able to really be able to showcase what because you may have and say, oh, I really know this person could get a job. They have such great skills. If only everyone else could see what I have. Well, here you go. Here's the tool that you could have everyone see what you have. And I think so. It's such a powerful way of showcasing for people what those, because we're really imagining the possibilities for people and where we can connect that to work opportunities. And like I share, those visual resumes should both reflect what people's skills are and what you see that they're good at, and their interests. And so I think we can think about for yourself and other people who in your life who like their jobs, a lot of times that's because there's a really great alignment of what people's skills are and what people's interests are. It's not 100% all the time. I love my work, but it can be hard some of the time. So we really want to think about what those things are. And I think many of you on this call, I've seen on other ones, are involved in doing learning journeys or using the Discover discovery method is part of this process. So I think that this really works well for people who are doing learning journeys or part of that discovery process where we're actually taking people to explore different things, because there's ways that when people are going to explore different things, we can take pictures as they're interacting with those different things. So I think that really figuring out where those skills and interests align, and then we can visually see what those things are. And so, you know, I want to share a little bit about one of the people, Carl and I have been working on doing some video resumes. And so we took a gentleman in Athens. We did some exploring with him, and so, you know, part of that journey, we one of the places that we ended up videoing was a place that this gentleman had gone on a learning journey to, and he had went. It's a place called it's in Athens, Georgia, and a place called Bear Hugs, a honey store. And so, you know, one of the great things about it is they went there on a learning journey, and it just they saw that the owner was really interested in this gentleman and learning more about him and sharing about what it was to sell honey and be involved. And so that connection was created that way. And so we said, hey, can we shoot some video here? The owner was more than willing to do that, and even is in the video talking about hiring people. So I think in that way, we are also supporting other community members to see the possibilities for people, because I would imagine this business owner may not have thought about this before going there. So this was one that we had done a learning journey to. Allie, the person who's working on that, had created this connection, and we went there. And so that's how, and this really fit in line with the both the skills and the interest of this gentleman, because he's a salesman. He loves to talk to people and share and be around people, and has those interests and skills in that way. And he also had this interest and skill and things that are outdoors and exploring outdoors. And so, you know, the other place that we did some filming at was at a nature center in Athens called Sandy Creek Nature Center. It happened, we didn't even call the people up there before we went. You know, here's a public place that's open all the time. I actually had an internship there when I was in college, so I knew the people there. And so when we walked in, you know, it was a great connection of me seeing people, and then they were like, oh yeah, of course you could do some filming there, like and it was a really beautiful way. And so I wanted to share both those stories to say that there's no perfect way to set this up, that there's a lot of different situations. There's some ways you may not even know anyone you go and do film. There's some ways you may work and create a connection. There's some ways that you may have already done some work with somebody to do this. But as Gillian said, really working for those places that are seen as valued places within the community that we all want to be a part of, really enhances what you're doing. You know, a lot of people, you know, if you think about it, how did those of you who are on this call, how did you find your job? You know, I know we're not looking through the yellow pages anymore, like, you know, in the old days. I think that, you know, most of you, if you think about how did you find your job, it's through a connection. It's through knowing someone else. You know, I know that my working now with Doug here came through connections, and sometimes it takes years of cultivating. And so, you know, and then all of a sudden we think that sometimes the way this other system is that it works different, but it's all the same. And so we're working to create those connections for people. But I'll tell you, you know, when we're working with people who others may not be able to be seen for their values and their skills and their interests and their talents in the ways that we see them, sometimes you have to really approach it differently, and you have to think more creatively about even those places that may be hard to think about what those are. And so how many of you on here have ever seen improv or gone to an improv show? I know that I used to love going to Dad's Garage in Atlanta before all of this went down. But it really, if those of you who have done improv know that what makes successful improv, is it a no, that's not going to work, or is it a yes attitude and everything is a yes? And so part of it is also applying that same mentality to this work as we're thinking about places where we can have these connections, or where possible jobs, or where we can do filming. It's thinking, here are the list of skills that a person has. Here's their interests. And even if you look at the discovery process, we talk about coming up with 3 themes for their employment and thinking about those things. And then when we're starting to think about where those can be, we start saying, you know, what are the vast places that we could look for opportunities, and as many people as we can get around for that team of support with the person of where are places that that those things take place, and really start just brainstorming and not saying like, oh no, that could never be a place, saying, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And what about this other idea? And what about this other idea? And the more lists that we can build of ideas of different places, the more ways we can have more ideas, because because it's not only about filming and creating these stories or going on learning journeys, but who are we going to send these videos to once they're complete, and how are we going to get the word out there? And so it's through these connections that, you know, oh, I know Gillian, I'm going to send this to her because she has a friend who may, and I will say that I actually helped a gentleman get a job by calling up Gillian and saying, hey, I think you have a connection. And I don't know if you remember this, Gillian, the gentleman who got a job at the UGA Special Collections Library because of following these connections. So it's really thinking about, oh, Doug, I know that you're involved with this. Can you share this video in this way? And so we need to think creatively in how we put it out there. Or, you know, I know somebody who's, you know, maybe on their, through their church, they may be able to find something in their synagogue, or through other listservs of, oh, you're in a women's group with this business owner. Can you share that with them? And so, and that's why there's also a piece of this. I tell Ben Dell, who's on here, who we work together, that I think sometimes those of us who do this work, I think in that creative way, it's almost like we're always working and always thinking about who can I share this with. Oh, I walk into this place. Is this a place that would be open to hiring or creating these connections? And so that's a lot of the work as being a provider. So I'm here as this provider hat on of how do we create these resumes? And that's really focusing on those gifts and skills. You know, how do we contact people? It's really, like I shared before, there's a lot of different ways we can just kind of cold call it. We can reach out. We can use our learning journeys as exploring, and then it's using our connections to really get this out there and really help show people that through really looking at people for their skills and interests, people can get some really cool jobs. And we can and part of all this work that we're doing here is how do we create more stories of success for those people who may have more barriers to employment or higher support needs, and maybe back in the day we even called unemployable, which we all have stories now to show us that that's not the case. And how do we continue to create those so more people can see the possibilities for our friends and our neighbors and those that we love. And so, you know, part of the work that I'm doing with Doug in this is kind of supporting this, how we get this out there, thinking through using a discovery process and how we can really use that creativity to brainstorm these possibilities for people.
Thank you, Amy. It's always so nice to see the passion. There's a lot of passion with Gillian and Amy right next to each other in the webinar, so that's nice. Thank you, Amy. Anita Newby is always somebody who's participating. Anita has said, who wouldn't benefit from these? People without disabilities would love this too. It's half resume and half interview, a real foot in the door. And also to Anita, which will segue right into Carl's part, Anita has asked, what about the technical side of things? Can I use my phone? Can I take video and photos that way? So Carl, are you with us? I don't see you anyplace.
I'm back.
There he is. All right, Carl. So the first question is from Anita, and I know you wanted to talk to us a little bit about the tech stuff. Carl is a gifted storyteller and also has some pretty good stories about Statesboro, and just showing up to film there as well. But Carl is part of Carl King Films. He is Carl King Films. And what we're going to do today, once we end, is have a question where if you answer it correctly in chat, the first two people, Carl's going to offer up some services to help you from a distance create your own visual or still photo resume. So I'll turn it over to you, Carl. Thanks for being with us.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Yeah. And the Gillian and Amy, that was great. That was awesome. And being there along the way, you know, as they were talking, I was like, yep, that's what it takes. You know? So I'm old enough that I'm sure that in lots of high schools now, they have like these slick media departments, you know, production departments. But when I was in school, we had the AV department, and they were the real square guys that walked around, you know. Who knows what the A in AV stands for, right? It's the audio video. So I thought it'd be good to talk first about, there's a reason that A is before the V, right? So because the audio is very important. I don't care if you're Steven Spielberg. If your audio stinks, then what we see really gets diminished because people are distracted. So you really want to think about your audio. I've done work in places where I did a piece for, what was it, the Westin Peachtree Plaza Hotel, and we asked to have a room, not to store our stuff, but we wanted one of their guest suites so that we could record audio. Why? Because it had nice drapes, it had nice bedding, it had nice carpet, and it made for all those to absorb the bad sounds and make a really nice sound. So you want to think about things like that when you're thinking about doing a resume that's going to have video on it. Now, Gillian said, take a photo, and you can do an awesome photo montage video resume. And we intend to do one of those next. And you don't need any audio at all. So that solves that problem. So if you're afraid of that part, that might be a good way to think about it. I think what I like is best going forward is a nice combination of video and stills. But so you want to think about your audio again. If you're outside, sometimes these things are unavoidable, but just be conscious, especially if you're asking questions. You can think about asking your subject questions in the right environment to offset any kind of problems you might have there. And you can use your phone. Was that Anita? Answering the question, you can certainly use your cell phone. There are cell phones today that do a better job than cameras I was using 15 years ago. You know? So feel free to use your phone. Just do me one favor. Hold it like this and not like this. Okay, right. Orientation. We want to be landscape, not portrait. Okay. Yeah, because your video formats, anything that you edit in is going to give you a big black space that's this size. So if you shoot it this way, you have to get creative, like the news stations and stuff. You have to fill that other area with something. And why go through that when you can start off by shooting it properly in the first place, right? So yeah, your phone is a great way to start. And if you just use your phone on the cheap, you can get some things to really help you. There are different little microphone attachments you can get to enhance your sound. There are little steady cams that hardly cost anything because your phone doesn't weigh anything. But certainly, if whatever you use, be it a phone, a small camera, whatever you use, you also want to think about having your recording device be steady. You don't want a lot of this. You know, if it comes down to setting it on a table, that's better than doing a lot of this. Or you can, when I use my camera, I can't believe it. There's no camera on my desk. Okay. It's pretty bad. Okay. Anyway, I have lenses. but I don't have a camera. So I'll use this recorder. If I'm using whatever I'm using, let's say I have a camera. You see people hold cameras like this. That's not right. You set it in your hand, and then you can take your elbow and kind of support it against your body. In the worst case scenario, then now you've got sort of a steady thing happening. The worst case scenario is you get a little motion, but it won't be too bad. So you want to think about those things while you're recording. These are some of the technical things. But again, if you're going to use a phone, doesn't take a lot of money to get set up to shoot some really sweet video with your phone. Okay, lighting, kind of a big deal. If you're shooting indoors, you want to make sure that what we call the key light, the main light that lights your subject, is in fact in front of your subject, that you have a brighter light lighting your subject's face than anything that is behind your subject. Because if you've got a really bright backlight, then your camera, especially if you're using something as simple as a phone, is not going to be able to make that adjustment. It's going to expose for that brighter light behind the person. Plus, it's more flattering if you've got a light in front. And you can just look up the room you're in. You say, okay. And sometimes you got to change the environment. You know, you close those curtains. People don't mind. And just remember that you want to have your key light, your main light, in front of the person, and just keep things like that in mind. Let's see, time of day that you're shooting. You've all heard before, you don't want to shoot outside at high noon because of the shadows that it puts on people. And that's right, but you can shoot outside at high noon if you can find shade or shadows, or shade, I'm sorry, a tree. I shoot under trees all the time. Trees are great. And then you've got options with these to shoot indoors or outdoors. You've done your learning journey. Some things you might have to shoot outside. So just be conscious of the time of day. And you can, if you're conscious of it, you can always look around and say, oh, we can go under that. Or we can go on that side of the building where the sun isn't directly on us. And if you do that, sometimes you get some really pretty light like that. Little plug, my baby girl got married this past Saturday. Very low key, just a handful of us. I didn't take lights. I'm a photographer. It's my daughter's wedding. I light everything. I didn't take lights. I wanted it to all look low key. So we sat her they have steps that go up there to their porch, the house they bought in Chattanooga. And I sat her at the mouth of the porch. And there was no direct sunlight, but there was more light in front of her than behind her. So photographers talk about light in measurements of what we call stops. It's the opening of the size of the lens. So it was maybe a couple of stops darker behind her than it was in front of her. Oh my goodness, beautiful, beautiful shots. So that was kind of self-serving. I'm sorry, but they were nice shots. Right? So if you just think about things like that, you can do a real nice job. And lastly, editing. So you don't have to go out and spend $1 million to have Final Cut or Adobe Premiere Pro or Avid or any of the high dollar things. It'll be a year before you know how to use it. iMovie is great. Windows Movie Maker is great. Just very simple, because all you're doing is you're telling your story and you're just putting your segment. You need a vehicle to help you put your segments together on a timeline, and any of those you can do it. You can do fine, because you can do the little things that make a big difference, like music. You want to add music. You want to pick a nice upbeat music. You want something that's going to make people feel good when they hear it, feel good about what they're watching. So that's always cool. Amy and I did a shoot yesterday for a very charming young lady. And as I came back and laid it out on the timeline, Amy, I was thinking, there are some other things that I'd like to show about this young lady. Shoot's over. So what do? Well, we reached out and we're going to see if her mom can take some photographs in those areas of things or if there are some existing photographs in the areas of that I would like to highlight. So we call that pickup shots. You know, we can go back after we have what we think we needed, and then when we see it laid out, we go, boy, I wish I had a better transition. Boy, I wish I'd said this better. You know, I wish we had brought this out more, or I wish we would have had time to do this whole other thing. And you can do that with photographs that someone can just send you after the fact, and that's always cool. So, I mean, let's see. I think I've hit the high points. And Doug, I'm good.
Man, Carl, that is fantastic. There's so many tips in there. We're going to do a Carl King tip sheet. It's clear that we need to do that. Carl, just one question from Anita. She is asking, Bo was outside speaking and it looked fantastic. Was there extra lighting in front of him in being outside?
Good question. Good question. No, there was not. And you can't. Yeah. No, there was not. But I picked that spot for a reason. You know, so if you think about it, you can get some really nice shots, even when you're inside. You know, I've shot things, and people said, "Man, you know, where were your lights?"
Yeah.
Nope.
Well, thank you. We're coming up on the time, Carl. That is just great. Amy, Gillian. We kind of wanted to end with something that is connected to what we've been talking about. Give me a thumbs up if you see the screen, see the PowerPoint. Yes, thank you, Carl. We'll do a full additional webinar on this tellthevaluedstory.com. It is in just the beginning stages. We've put that in the chat. You can go and check it out. But essentially, based on Gillian and certainly Darona's work, Carl's, Amy's, I mean, there's just a lot of value in making sure we're telling respectful stories and making sure that that's from a lived experience. So with the support of Dr. Stoneman and the work that we're doing at IHDD, we decided to launch this. What we plan on doing is essentially having story auditors with lived experience, trained in a little bit of SRV, and another link we'll put up here that's invaluable called the National Center on Disability and Journalism. And we really want these story auditors to be able to give funders, provider agencies, obviously other types of media and storytellers feedback, because we've seen so many bad examples. And part of it is raising that awareness and doing that through the lens of lived experience. So we're really excited about this. I think we can really make a difference in how we're helping support these kind of stories. I'll make sure Joseph gets these 4 or 5 slides to send out to you, but in particular, there are some great links here to go to and to follow up on. I just wanted to end here, since we're talking about employment. We did focus groups in 4 major cities back in 2017, and in the Southeast, there were over 30 employers, and they were employers in these really functional feedback sessions who had already customized a job. They'd already created an employment opportunity for someone. And over and over and over again, they talked about that last bullet: ditch the human service lingo. Get it out of, we don't know what it is. We don't talk that way. And I think that's really important as we think about what Gillian, Amy, and Carl have mentioned, because we can ruin it all if we start trying to market a program rather than support a job seeker who wants to go to work and make contributions. And I guess I lied there. There is one other slide from the brilliant Judy Heumann talking about how poorly media has done in really reflecting the stories that are told. So hit the tellthevaluedstory.com website. Stay tuned for more information about that. Again, next week, join us on Wednesday as we talk with our friends and parents in Rhode Island about their perspective on self-employment. I see we've got some chat here that I better be paying attention to, and I have not. Now it's disappeared on me. Joseph, can you tell me what we got in chat? I can't find it.
Yeah, is basically just listing out the editing tools that Carl listed,
Okay,
and
great,
putting in the websites that were mentioned.
great. Well, any final questions or comments that I obviously can't see for some reason now, but anything else?
Anita had a pretty good question
Yeah,
about lighting. Anita asked that said that Bo was outside speaking and that it looked really great, and I agree. Was there extra front lighting in that situation?
I think Carl got that one. I think so. Carl, you answered that one, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry to miss it. I think
No,
Deontay may have had a question as well. Deontay Brown.
Let's hear that one since I can't see it, Ben, since you're the facilitator now. What's that question?
Yes, my question was do you use a selfie stick, or have you ever heard of a selfie stick for if like you wanted to do videos on your phone?
Yeah, yeah, selfie sticks are cool. I was thinking there. Oh, check him out. He's got the selfie stick working hard. And he's got a gimbal. He's got a gimbal on it. No, that's great because you can walk
also
around
use
with
a
that.
tripod too.
Yeah, anything. That's why I was saying, you want. I just said because there are lots of different devices, different things you can use. So I said you want your phone, your camera to be stable, and these items help stabilize your phone or your camera.
And Joseph and Tracy are both, thank you, Carl, urging you, please, 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 to fill out the evaluation. That link is over there in chat. It helps us do a better job, gather some data. We'll just send you our love and goodwill if you can get over there and fill out the very quick survey. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Joseph. Well, as always, it has been a wonderful time, too short of a time. Join us next week, as we said, on Wednesday at 2. And make sure you get in your calendars the other 2 webinars that will finish up our April series. My deepest thanks to Gillian and Amy and Carl, and for all of you who attended. It's been a wonderful time. Have a great rest of the day. As always, I'll stay on doing my waving people goodbye, but you are free to go, okay? All right, everybody. Thank you, Anita.
y'all. Thank you.